Fetching. Oh, meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. So
I
this
wonder
is
if
delayed and it might be there.
I'm on there. I'm on the page. Yeah, we're live. Cool.
Sweet.
Oh my God.
You need to hear this right now. Not you, Sarah, but you watching need to hear. Have you ever heard in childbirth, I did not get to blank, blank, blank at my birth? Or I had to blank, blank, blank at my birth? Or they made me. Have you ever heard that? Let us know here, there, and all the ways. I knew that was going to happen. Let us know if you've heard that before. And if you have, or if you have said it yourself or heard other people say it, love on that. And keep watching because we are going to uncover the normal parts of childbirth, the normal part that does not feel normal. It makes you feel icky after, and it makes these phrases acceptable somehow in our culture and in our society. So I have Sarah with me. Oops.
Wait, which side are we on? I don't
Is
know.
anyone else having one of those days?
Oh my gosh, it's been a day.
We're both having one of those days. It's probably, is it a full moon again?
No, I don't think so.
It's not, because it just was. I'm going to blame everything on that. I was having a really crappy day the other day, and Sarah was like, full moon. So no one's house caught on fire. And yeah, I recorded an entire podcast that wasn't actually recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was like a borderline fire in my home.
That's terrifying. So let's talk about this light subject.
To add on to the day you're having.
Right. So from a nurse perspective, I would hate, and I hate to hear they made me do this. If I was part of a birth, gosh, that's so ugly. Like it's not the goal is to hear they made me. And I always my goal is to do something for someone in a totally consensual way that they've given choice about. So hearing that language like in the community at a birth that I was present for helped me shape my language. But I want to hear what your examples are, Sarah, for, because this is your baby topic. You birthed this topic.
Yeah.
Sarah's super passionate about it. Oh, P.S. We're both educators for Fearless Birth Delivered, and we're announcing today that we have opened 3 series dates. So I'll put some links down below while Sarah, I want to hear some examples of what is normalizing, like why are those phrases so normal, so common, and what actually is happening?
Yeah, so this is something, like you said, I'm pretty passionate about because my first birth was very much a hospital / provider / staff driven experience. I showed up at the hospital very just unprepared, but I felt prepared because I was like, hey, I'm going to go in and the doctors are just going to do what they do. And they're going to tell me exactly how to birth my baby. And that's just like, I've learned is not the best approach. And so as I started learning more about birth, I realized that a lot of the choices that I had were taken away from me. And these are all choices that I could have had. And it could have very much so changed my experience with the birth of my first. So what we're seeing is a lot of people who are going into the hospital like that. We don't know a whole lot about birth inherently because we don't see birth very often. When birth is talked about, it's very hospitalized, medicalized, and almost like a taboo topic. We aren't teaching about normal birth, or we aren't being taught about normal birth. And what I mean by normal is like an undisturbed, intervention-free or low intervention birth where everything happens how it's supposed to happen, right? So we're not being taught about that. And so then we get into a hospital setting where we're supposed to give birth, right? Because that's what our culture says. And then we end up having somebody else driving the ship. And when that happens and we don't know about our choices get taken away from us. And this can sometimes make us feel like we're really out of control of our birth experience. And this can cause something that's called birth trauma. And then birth trauma is met with this narrative of, oh, well, baby's alive and you guys are both alive and you're both here and you have your baby. And so it's okay. Like, don't worry, look at the bright side. And we're like, oh my gosh, what? Look at the bright side. I just had a whole bunch of stuff done to me and I didn't even know it was done to me until after it was done to me. Like,
right.
What do you mean?
So that is human rights pattern.
So what do you mean by
human rights violation?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
To have things done that you just remember that weren't. So I wrote down a few things before this discussion to kind of brush up on what people are talking about around human rights in childbirth and why it feels so icky and sticky afterward. Why it feels weird to hear they made me do this for nurses, for patients, for your friends, for your family, because it's like deep in the core of our human rights.
Yeah. So even especially as a doula and a childbirth educator and somebody who has done a lot of time learning about birth and learning about human rights in childbirth, hearing my friends, family, being in groups where people are talking about birth and hearing them say, oh, I wasn't allowed to get out of the bed. We don't allow them to do that when I'm doing hospital tour. We can't allow you to do that because of XYZ.
Right.
And then sometimes you see things happening that are like in the guise of the safety of the patient or the baby. So we see, we can't allow you to get out of bed because it's a safety hazard. That's a fault risk, or that's, your water's broken, so you can't get out of bed. And so sometimes we see people like masking these human rights violations, not giving you choice, not giving you the benefits and risks, and then forcing you to do things that you don't consent to, or doing things to you that you don't consent to, under the guise of keeping your baby safe and keeping yourself safe. And that's terrifying.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what's the limit? Like, how far can that go? Right. Up to like, am I going to be taken into surgery because people think that that's best for my baby?
Right.
Yeah.
And do I have a choice?
Yeah. And what do I have a choice about? So human integrity, self-determination, also privacy. Like, just the fact that there's so many people in your birthing space in a hospital that it's totally not private. Your medical records, of course, are kept private, but like anyone can walk in.
Yeah, that also feels really, really weird. It's like, it's normal for it to happen at a birth, but why does it feel so weird? Because this is a really vulnerable time for you, because you're literally birthing your baby and like your whole entire heart is out on the table because you're trying to birth your baby, and there's a whole bunch of strangers that keep walking in and out and taking you out of the zone. And yeah, it's weird.
Asking questions and like admitting you, doing admission paperwork and asking for your ID and like insurance cards.
Yeah.
And all kinds like patient what do they do, like surveys? Like, what?
Oh,
get out of here. What are you doing? And they bring you trays. Like someone told me, I was blown away by how many like food service people showed up in my room. It's not like the food service people want to be there either. They're always like, please tell me I can't come in. It's a vulnerable and like private time, super private. Not just your health records are up on the screen. No one's reading those. It's actually your vulva that is hanging out or your topless or your braless or you're in the shower.
Yeah. And another thing is, sometimes that a loss of modesty doesn't feel right either. And then feeling like we don't have control over that. So a lot of times people will say, oh, the modesty goes out the door whenever you're having baby, but it doesn't have to. Like, that's also a choice. So we can also protect modesty by using the sheets or keeping you clothed, or if somebody comes in, like pulling the drapes or being like, hey, can you have it? Can we have a second? You know, but this is the problem, because we're not given the choice. We're not told that this is a choice. We're put on this conveyor belt, and this is just how things happen. And we're kind of just sitting back along for the ride. And it feels weird. We have people coming in saying, you have to stay in bed. We have people coming in saying modesty needs to go out the door, and you feel super uncomfortable. We have people coming in asking you to fill out all this paperwork. We have people coming in saying, oh, baby's not doing very well. Now you have to do this. Mm-hmm. Because that's what I think is best, but you're not given the choice. Okay, these are the benefits and the risks and the alternatives. So what do you want to do with your care? Mm-hmm. This is not something that's being presented in hospitals all across the world as a choice. It's not being presented as a choice.
No. So if you can't wait, if you shouldn't wait until you're there to learn all of this is happening and make decisions on the fly, like turning to your partner or your nurse and being like, get everyone the F out of here. I didn't know I was going to have 10 eyes on me or 15 eyes. That's impossible. 14 eyes on me. That's a pretty critical like time to make those decisions. And it's usually out of like desperation or fear or anger. Like, you don't want to get to that point. What can parents do? What can pregnant people do? Because this sounds awful.
Yeah. And it can be awful. And sometimes when we have a birth, when we're pregnant again, or for a second or third or fourth or fifth time, and we look back at our experiences and we realize how out of control we felt, that might even increase our panic about it and make us feel really uncomfortable about approaching birth again. Yeah. And so what I say is, of course, education is super important. I always say education is important. Knowing that we have a choice, knowing what our choices can be, or what they could be, what we might be presented with. But most importantly is learning communication skills and figuring out how to communicate clearly and directly to your team and your staff, the staff that's there, or if you're birthing at home, to your midwife who's there, or at a birth center, wherever, just making sure that you have those communication skills honed in on, you know, how you're comfortable talking to other people, how you're comfortable advocating for yourself, how your partner is comfortable advocating for you, and how that all works together to make sure that your experience is collaborative and you still feel like you're in control.
Education. So pretty much take our fearless
pretty much
birth delivered class. Yeah, I mean, it's an option. It's just an option. Okay, just an option. I love that, because that's the goal for our class. Obviously, that's why we teach together, because we teach about actually, like, what are your choices, educational foundation, so that they're actually informed. And all of that comes in with, that's related to human rights. We just don't talk like that all the time. Like having privacy, wearing what we want to wear, having control of the people in the room. Like, these aren't even things that people imagine come up. Yeah. A lot of times, unless they've, like, I just got a question that said, it was a great question. And they said, I'm about to have a baby. I see all of these images posted everywhere of people giving birth without any pants on. And I was like, yeah, you're right. And they were like, I really need to wear underwear. And here's like two solid reasons why I need to wear something down there while I give birth. Like, what are the medical reasons why no one is wearing underwear when they have a baby? I was like, great question. Like, these are totally appropriate to learn the evidence, the medical reasons, the educational foundation, and then so that you're actually informed and you can have some like history with some of these topics, and then how to communicate and get what you want out of your experience, and not like in an aggressive way. Totally collaborative. That was such a great word.
Yeah, we want to collaborate. We want to be collaborative, not combative. So like
Cambria said, this makes me want to consider a third baby just to have a great birth experience.
I am not going to lie. Sometimes when people tell me about their wonderful birth, I'm like, And then I get to hang out with my 1.5-year-old, and I'm like, maybe not.
It's hard when they grow up. Yeah. But the experience is supposed to live with you forever. It does live with you forever. That's why it's so hella important. And these are all skills that you take with you into parenting. So tell us about Fearless Birth real quick, and then we got to go finish this crappy day.
Yeah. So Fearless Birth Delivered. You want me to tell them about the new classes that are?
Yeah. So like 3 series. How long is a series?
So our series are going to be 4-week series, 4-week. We just got done with the 3-week, and we realized that there was a lot that we're covering. So we extended it to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
So,
and we even have a surprise coming up to extend it even more, but 4 weeks, we meet once a week live. What's the best part? What's your favorite part about it?
My favorite part about it is probably the coping kit.
Me too.
I know. But the coping kit is so awesome because it does have a lot of tools, and it allows us to be really hands-on whenever we're learning about how to cope with labor, to make sure that we feel in control of our labor. And at the end of the day, whenever we feel in control, we can communicate better, we can be more collaborative with everybody who's involved with our birth. And so it's such a key component to how we teach and what we teach. So I really love, and I also love how we do the in-class comfort measures. That's a lot of fun.
That is fun. It is fun. We have such a great team, and there's a private group as well where we're adding value, and they're not super chatty, but they do participate.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
Yeah.
Cambria said same. I have a 2.5-year-old and a 4-month-old. Jeesh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And Anna says that's why childbirth education is extremely important. I suggest door locks. Yes, door locks. Oh, I love when people are joining. So we tried to do a platform where you could talk with us again and have like interactive. It didn't work this time.
Yeah, it's being really wonky.
But we want you to tell us like best and worst of your childbirth education experiences. I want to hear about that. Drop that right now. And we want to see you in class. So I miss in-person classes. That's what Anna said. Yeah. Well, I kind of do. I kind of don't, because I don't wear pants to class. And also last time my kid made a appearance, you didn't even see her. I realized later, but she snuck under this table back here, and I had to like yank her out by her ankles. She was hiding in my office while I was doing class.
It was so funny.
Oh my gosh. You just never know what's going to come up.
But also I really like the virtual, because especially the way that we have it formatted, because we're like, it really puts the ball in the learner's court to where they can use the information as it comes up and revisit it. And in-person class is wonderful because we're in person and we can see each other's faces and we can interact. But I think there's a lot of value with it being virtual as well, because it's all there for you to revisit when you need it.
Yeah, it's really kind of intimate when we're in your living room, and we talk head on about birth fears. So this class is specifically intended for people who want to tackle their fears, or the myths, or maybe not myths, truths, and the like weird stuff that they hear about birth. We tackle these head on, and we give you homework so that you can navigate around, okay, is this true? Does this relate to me? And how can I avoid this if this is something that I don't want to have happen? Instead of either avoiding tough topics, which a lot of people do, or only narrow in on the things that you're most afraid about. You only narrow in, you only think about all those things, all the worst stories that you've ever heard. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I'm headed in that direction. I don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So you got to hear all the other opportunities. Lisa said, I remember when I gave birth to my last 2, I left my bra on, and the nurses both times were like, hey, you still have your bra on, you should take it off. Just in case anything happens, like an emergency, we would have to cut it off. I've said those words, to which I said, if something like that were to happen, you have my permission to cut it off, but I would like to keep it on. Exactly. So we totally validate choice just like that, and like how to do that. And so you guys can still have a really great relationship. And also I teach nurses how to handle those situations too, where I'm like, just it's all right. It's all right. It's all right if people want to leave their bra on. Just tell them what's up and then let it go. Let it go. It's okay. It's okay for choice. So the link is here to the class. And I want to hear your best and worst about your childbirth class. And it could be that you didn't take one, or it could be that you took too many. It could be that you didn't take ours.
Could be.
We want to hear that. Not that like I love these stories too. And I love them. I think people come to the comments for stories because they want to hear that it can be okay. People want to hear that it doesn't have to be the scary stories that they read on Facebook or on Google or they see on YouTube, because it can be totally different. Totally different. I like talking about rights, human rights, choice, privacy.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for
sharing.
sharing.
I think it's important because there's a lot of information, especially on social media, that's so polarized. So we have people who are like, you have people who are feeling like, I don't want to rock the boat. I don't want to be arguing while I'm in the throes of labor. Like, that's just not what I want. A majority of people feel that way. And then you have people who are really strong birth advocates who are like, oh, but you really need to stand up. Just fire your nurse or fire your OB or just tell them I do not consent. And I'm like, that's great. And I say that to my clients sometimes too, if they're really feeling like, I don't know what I would do. I'm like, at the end of the day, you can just say, I do not consent. And that's that. And that's fine. But the in between here is where a lot of information is lacking, where we're talking about how we're going to talk about it. Like, how are we going to have this conversation where we're not arguing and we're not like having this battlefield of a labor room. It's going to be more we respect each other. I know what I want and I'm still going to have what I want, but I'm not going to like tell you that you suck at your job while doing that. Like, so it's really about like keeping our nurses in their parasympathetic nervous system. Right?
Totally. Everyone, things are in control. No one's like losing control. This is just our choice. Thank you so much. Or no, thank you so much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not about like you have to have a home birth to avoid all of this, because that's not true either.
No, not at all.
You have to move states and go find a birth center. Sorry. No way.
That's a good option. It's not if you are not comfortable birthing in your home, I do not think you should birth in your home.
No.
You should birth in your home if you're comfortable. You should birth in the hospital if you're comfortable with it. But we also need to face the reality of what that looks like.
Right. And like practice how it can be okay, practice how it can be great, and learn early some of the routines or policies or expectations that your provider has that they don't necessarily share with you right away. People say, I don't even know if I should take this class in my first trimester, even though I'm looking for classes. Or even some students are like, still, this seems like early to take this. And I say, you have no idea how your experience would be without it being in your first trimester, because second and third, when you have to make these decisions, even in pregnancy, it's practice for communicating with your provider and getting clues on how they are going to communicate back to you. Are they transparent? Do they sit and let you, ask these questions? Do they answer truthfully, honestly, and consistently?
Yeah.
This is how you know that stuff before you get to your birth, and early enough to change it, because then you get 38 weeks and they start talking induction and you're like, oh my gosh, I was not expecting this. What? And then you don't have a choice. Like, it's much harder to change providers. Harder to change providers at 38.
I wouldn't say you don't have a choice, but I would say the choice is a lot harder to make and a little bit.
Depending on where you are in the country.
Yeah.
Your choice may be gone. The worst case scenario, you can't change providers and then you feel like, OMG, I'm stuck. That's the worst case.
Yeah.
And later in pregnancy, they make it very tough.
Yeah.
They make it tough because it's liability stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, sticky stuff. We get into some sticky stuff.
It is. And we're also, the course, I want to add that like it's it's an ever evolving thing as fears come up and we start talking about the myths that people are hearing and maybe some new things or some old things that are like changing.
Mm-hmm.
We like to make sure that the course is relevant and that it's really meeting people where they are. And so that's also important to talk about.
Yeah, each course is different.
Yeah. And we give our students the opportunity to talk about their fears, and then we kind of so we take that into consideration. We direct our education around those fears so that we can really hone in on the group that we have. And it's not just like a cookie cutter. And I think that's one of like the best parts too. It's another one of my favorite parts because it's just it's like a breathing, living thing.
It's cool. It means a lot of work right before class.
It is a lot of work, but it pays off.
But it pays off. Yeah, we've had some great reviews. So hit our Facebook page, which I put down below. It's brand new, but we are going to put up some reviews and some people's experiences, how they felt before and how they felt after. It's pretty exciting. So let us know where you're at. Let us know how many weeks you are, where you're at in the birth zone. I know there's like professionals in here and doulas and all that. So let us know, and we'll see you next week. We hope to do this show, right?
Yeah.
If I can snag Sarah every week.
Yeah. Do we want to say the dates of the new
class? Yeah.
Okay.
Wednesdays. So, I know that.
Yes, they're Wednesdays. They are, we have a November class. It's going to start on November 4th and go through 4 weeks through November. And then we have, what are the other classes? February.
And May.
May.
Those are all in events in our page. So you can easily refer back, but they take up the whole month. So it makes it so easy to remember. But you have to register weeks beforehand. We are closing registration early so that you can get your coping kit.
Yes. Particularly international.
Particularly international. Oh my gosh. Even though we don't want to exclude, because that makes it just that more juicy of a class.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Tell us how many weeks you are. Tell us where you're at and your best and worst of childbirth education experiences. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah. I always love talking to you.
I love talking to you too. Bye, y'all.